Learning to budget can be a powerful tool that will bless both you and your family for many years to come. So, the first step we want to do in learning how to budget is to figure out why. Why are you wanting to budget? What is your motivation? And then to really take a look at some of the goals and things you want for your future and how being more financially secure will help you get there. So, keeping in mind what personally motivates us, I want us to remember that as we learn to track our budget. So, tracking your budget is extremely important. We want to track our budget because we need to be very specific and detail oriented about everything we're doing. So you can go old school and write it down, but with all the amazing technological advances that we have, there are a ton of free tracking apps out there that you can use. My personal favorite is EveryDollar. That's one I use. I'm literally using it every week. It has become a habit for me. There is not a single dollar I spend that I do not account for on EveryDollar. And so that's the one I'm going to teach you how to use on this video. If there's one you like better or use that's different, that's fine. But that's because the one I use, that's one I'm going to show you how to use. So I've left links to the everydollar.com and as well as the phone apps, because they have a really good phone app, in the description of this video. So once you've created your account, you'll see something like start planning for any given month that you're on, and you just go ahead and click on start planning. And the way you're going to do this can be individualized and personal, just based on your preferences. So you can split it up, your income, into each paycheck you get. I find it easier just to lump it all into one. So I just call it one income, but that's, like I said, completely up to you. What you do want to do when you're creating your budget is you want to underestimate your income and overestimate your expenses. What I mean by that is, so let's say last month you made $2,985, and the month before you made $2,798. And your paycheck and income varies month to month, right? It's never going to be the exact same every month. But for the most part, it's never below $2,700. So what I would do is I'm going to underestimate my income. I'm going to say that I'm planning to make $2,700 for the month. I know I'm probably going to make a little more than that, but I want to budget as if I'm only going to make $2,700. And then if I can fit every one of my expenditures into that, then I know I'll be saving some money at the end of the month. And so I'm going to adjust everything accordingly. So I have tithing here. Put that at, because it's 10%, I'm going to have 270 in there. We will look at the emergency fund a little later. That's where we want to put money in, but I understand when money's tight, you have to make sure all the bills are paid first, right? So we'll come back to that. The next section is the mortgage/rent, based on, whatever it is you're paying. The average amount, oh my goodness, it's going up right now, but the average amount is somewhere around $1,200. And oftentimes this is included with all the other utility things in it if you're renting. If it's a mortgage, then it's not included. You just put individual items in there. So like, let's say I have water that's not included in my mortgage. I could just add an item and call it water or utility. And I can add it there, and like, let's say that's what, $60 a month or something. I can budget for that accordingly. And then, just based on however much it is, this is actually more realistic, about 200. Some people don't have cable. Sometimes your trash is included in your utility. So just whatever that is for that. Oftentimes, though, here it would be good to include your phone and internet bill if they're together or separate. So I'm just going off of like general average costs of what they are. But you're going to want to actually put in for a phone and internet bill, because those do not vary. Generally, they're the exact same price every month. It's okay to put the exact amounts for these. So like, say your internet is $59.98. That's totally fine to put the exact amount, or your phone bill and your internet. So let's say your internet is like 57 or whatever it is, right? So we're budgeting there. For gas, car maintenance, this one would be good. This one is more of a savings one, in my opinion. So I don't generally have it there. I keep it. But for gas, oh goodness, if you're driving a lot, it can be expensive. It can be up to like $200 a month. Eesh. But let's put 200 and see where we're at there. So, and then just kind of the rest of any expenditures that might be. So say you have to pay for doctor's visits. You wouldn't have this here if you're on Medicaid. You could just delete this column, right, if you didn't have expenditures here. Or if you had medication costs, you could add medication, right, medication. Not the best speller. You could add different things like that here and then plan accordingly based on what you have there. You want to make sure you know you're budgeting for groceries and restaurants. And if you notice, so for example, because our budget is getting kind of tight here up at the end, so like let's say we budget 400 for groceries if I'm feeding a family, you know, and I have more mouths to feed or something like that. And I feel like that's being pretty frugal. I'm realizing things are kind of tight. Maybe I can't eat out. Or maybe I can eat out, but I'm only going to give myself $100 for the month to eat out. So what I would do then is say, well, generally speaking, there are 4 weeks to a month. I'm at a budget of $25. And if I exceed that for the week, then I can't eat out again until next week. You kind of have to look at what your budget is at, you know, in order to do this. In some cases, you have no restaurant fund at all. Money is too tight. You can't eat out anymore because it's gotten really expensive, right? So like I'm not going to fill everything out here because this is really for you to fill out everything that is really in your expenditure. And if you're having a question of what all do I spend money on, pull open your bank account and fill this out simultaneously. Just look at all the expenses and say, this is an expense, what expense would this go under, right? So I'm not going to show you how to fill out every single one of these. What I am going to show you is how to use it. So what happens when you get money coming in, how to add a transaction, and then also how to use the debt tracker and creating a fund. So for example, let's start with the fund first. So back up here under gas, it had an option for maintenance, which I took out. But cars do require maintenance. Generally speaking, I like to save up a little bit every month to handle my car maintenance. So what I'm going to do is we're going to say car maintenance, right? Maintenance, and we're going to make it a fund. Okay, and then all we have to do is make this a fund. That's it. And we're going to start with an original balance of 0 if I'm just starting it. If you already have money towards a maintenance fund, you can track it there. But that is all I'm going to do. And I just click here. And you can tell that it's been made a fund when you have a little piggy bank icon next to it. And what this does is so let's say I want to budget to, cars need to be re-registered. You need to get oil changes if you have a flat tire, things like that. So I like to put a little bit of money every month towards my car funds that'll cover things like that. So let's say we put $20 a month towards it, or whatever it is you decide you can do or can afford. Then when I have next month, so I just scroll quickly down, I can see that this maintenance item here is now doubled because it pulls the money I put towards it or planned for it from last month, and it adds what I do this month. So that's how you can create a fund that you can save for and plan for. Making something a fund is extremely useful. You want to do that, so we're going to also want to do that with our emergency fund, but if you notice, it's already automatically made a fund because this will then just keep track of like any emergency savings that you do. The next thing I want to show you how to do is to manage the debt column here. So you can actually track any debts you have, whether it be car debt, credit card debt, a mortgage, anything like that, you can actually track here. It's really handy. So let's say we have some credit card debt, and we want to keep track of that here. You can even select the type of credit card debt. The current balance, let's say there's $200 on there, and the minimum payments, let's say $35. Credit card interests are really high. I don't know exactly what they are off the top of my head. We're going to say it's like 27%. They're really high. And our original balance, we don't necessarily have to put on there if it was different. It's optional, but so we'll just leave that blank. We're going to go ahead and add the debt. We're going to plan to pay the minimum payment of $35, right? So we're going to plan that and track that there. And that's kind of one of the things we can do to keep track of our debt. If we've made sure all of our mandatory expenses are covered, we can say we can do $5 towards emergency fund. That's not very much, but you have to remember every little bit counts. So the last thing I want to show you in terms of how to use this is how to add when you get money and when you spend money, right? So we're going to go here to the plus sign, and it's called adding an expense or transaction, right? So let's say you get a paycheck coming in. We're going to switch that to income. We're going to have a paycheck of, like, let's say you have $1,425, right? And then we can say, where is this coming from? From work, wherever your work is. When did you get it? You can always track the time and week in which you got, or the time when you got it. And you can either choose the budget item to put it in here, or what I like to do is I just like to drag it right in here. There's something very satisfactory about watching it be put in there, right? So that's how we can track some of our income. And then if we have an expenditure, so let's say we have an expense, let's say we had $56 at the grocery store. Where was this? Let's say it was at Walmart. And when did we spend it? Maybe it was on this day. And I like to match the dates with the dates it shows in my bank account or on my transaction, because then it helps me find them later. But then I'm going to add this expense. I can scroll down to where groceries were, and I can drag it over, and it keeps track of that. It tells me how much I have remaining. So at the end of the month, because if you're trying to be good and save money, and what you've done is underestimate your income, then you're going to want to account for that adjustment at the end of the month when you get your last paycheck. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So let's add our last paycheck. All right, so let's say we get a paycheck of, we'll pay at like $1,298, and this was from work. And we get it towards the end of the month. Whenever that was, we also make sure that it was income, and we're going to track that, right? So we were good in our estimation of our income. We estimated that we would make at least a minimum of $2,700. Awesome, we did it. But what you want to do now is you want to adjust that number, because you want to pay accurate tithing and you want to make sure you're tracking all of your money. The reason I do this at the end of the month is because I'm not going to spend any more money at the end of the month. I'm done spending money, so all that money, in this case, the $23, is not going to be fully $23 after I pay the tithing. But that extra money can just go to savings. So I'm going to just readjust this here at the end of the month to show exactly how much I made. I'm going to account for that in my tithing. So that's 0.3. I'm then going to, I do this all at once. I'm then going to go onto my church account. I'm going to pay my tithing. And then I'm going to account for the difference in my emergency fund. I'm going to say, now instead of saving $5, I'm saving $27.70. And it might seem a little at first, and this is just kind of one small example of doing that, but it can add up over time. And that's really the benefit of when you're tracking your expenses, underestimating your income, maybe overestimating your expenses too. Maybe you didn't need $150 on gas. Maybe you only needed $147 on gas. So at the end of the month, you can take what you exactly paid on gas and move it back over. The key that you want to do is any item that isn't a fund, that doesn't have a piggy bank next to it, all of the numbers remaining by it need to be zero, because that money being budgeted is going to basically disappear, right? If you want to keep track of it and like just keep gas, the money in the gas, and have it roll over to next month, then all you have to do to it is make it a fund. So we just set it as a fund, make it a fund, and that's all we have to do. And then in that case, then I don't have to have it roll over, and it'll just show up as it is next month. And then if you want to open a future month, you just go up here and you can open a month, and you can just copy months over from previous months. And the more you use it, the better you're going to get with it. But using this tool, so my husband was he's really frugal, and when we first got married, it drove me nuts. But we used this tool when we first got married. It took me maybe 2 or 3 months to get used to it, and for a while I hated it because it felt like I couldn't spend my own money. But I'm glad I stuck with it, because once I learned how to use it and love it, this got us through both of our undergrads debt free. Like, using this tool alone, being very frugal with our money and diligent and tracking everything we spent, we were able to get through school without taking on any loans. And I consider that a great achievement. And we would not have been able to do this if we weren't very meticulous in tracking our budget. Once you've tracked your budget and practiced more with the budgeting tool, throughout the month you may notice you need to make adjustments to expenses. Maybe you forgot about some expenses. Maybe you didn't need to plan so much in other areas, and that's okay. Make adjustments as necessary, but it is important to track every expense. And then after you've been following your budget, creating your budget, it's important to hold yourself accountable. Oftentimes people find it hard to hold themselves accountable if it's just them. Like, I am this person 100%. I need someone to help me be accountable. So I recommend either conducting a family council or even using a friend, someone that you trust, who will tell you the hard things you need to hear when you need to hear them. Like, if you're not being good with your budget, and it's for dumb reasons, like you ate out more than you needed to, you need a friend to tell you that was dumb. Like, you need to be better than that, right? And be accountable in that fashion. But then also not to be discouraged when we make slip-ups or mistakes like that, to keep trying. But when you slip up, it's okay, because we're imperfect. We don't need to fret about it. We can just try again. According to the NIH, actually, it takes about 3 months to form habits. And I'm talking about a positive habit of budget keeping, right? This could, any kind of habit, right? But budget keeping is a positive habit we want to form. And it does take time to form it as a habit. Like I said, it took me about 2 or 3 months to really get into the habit of it. And now I literally am on there budgeting everything every week. We don't spend a dollar that isn't budgeted. And I promise that if you keep at it and keep with it and keep trying, don't get discouraged when you make a mistake or it's hard at first. Just keep with it. These 2 scriptures I really love, because when we're doing everything we can on our part, and I'm including being obedient to the commandments God has set, but also just in the sense of, if we want to be financially stable, if we're doing everything that we can on our part to be financially stable, even if it seems small and minuscule, then the Lord will make up the difference. I have seen that time and time again in my life. And so this last scripture, specifically for Malachi, is actually about paying tithing. Because I know when you're financially struggling, it can be kind of intimidating to pay tithing. 10% can seem like a lot when you're barely covering your bills. But I promise, and I have seen and testified this experience in my own life, that if we pay our tithing, the Lord will provide. He won't promise to make it easy. He doesn't say he's going to lift our burdens, but he makes it possible for us to accomplish our goals. He makes it doable. And I can testify to that 100%. So I hope you found this helpful. Just practice with it. Try it out. I promise it can only benefit your life.